And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
Far away in another country. Far away in another country.
Hey, and welcome to The Law Show on CL 650. I'm Zach Spencer, and today we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things that sort of fall under the umbrella of immigration and citizenship. We have Rudy Kisher and Alex Stojkovic here, partners at MKS Law in downtown Vancouver. So when did MKS Law start?
We started in November of 2002.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the firm was started by Gordon Maynard and myself. Rudy joined us in July of 2005. So in our current incarnation, we've been around now for the better part of 11 and a half years.
Yeah.
The firm has been around, though, for this is our 15th year now.
Yeah.
We started in Yaletown, and last summer we moved to Granville and Hastings. So.
And is this a growing field, immigration and citizenship law?
It has proven to be. We're a firm now of, 6 lawyers and some 10 staff. So, yeah.
And the Bar Association, I think you've seen the numbers of lawyers actually practicing immigration almost doubled in the last 10 years.
That's right. So just in terms of CBA members, you've gone from when we started to being, in the low hundreds to well over 2,000 just members of our section nationally.
Yeah, that's driven by a lot of. What's happened is Canada's opened up to students, number one. So you've seen a massive increase in the number of students, a large increase in the number of foreign workers we have over the last sort of 10 to 15 years. And I think that's driven it. And plus with globalization, increase of sort of business visitors coming, right?
Mm-hmm. So you're needed to stick handle all of those cases, right? Yeah. And so Are most boutique firms, are you unique that way, or are most inside a larger law firm?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I think we're one of the rare boutique firms that's left. Yeah. There's maybe a half dozen like ours in the Lower Mainland that are specialty one immigration and citizenship law only kind of firms. Right now, there's the big firms have all gotten back into immigration law in the last decade, and you also have a lot of solo practitioners, as well as several specialized firms that are affiliated with or owned by accounting firms that
like
run
the KPMGs of the world.
Exactly. KPMG has
PwC.
They all own their own immigration law firms
because they're moving
nationally.
executives around the world, right?
Exactly. So the global mobility, they basically have a captive law firm that does all their work.
Yeah. So we still have a niche in there,
and so what is the bulk of your work? Like, what are the phone calls like through the day? What are you getting recently?
I think we're a pretty lucky firm in that we get a wide variety, but the bulk of our work is helping companies deal with either two issues. Either they've got a labor shortage, so they're saying, listen, we need these specialized workers, we need these engineers to come in. How can you help us bring these people in? We've got them selected. We just don't know how to get them a work permit here. Or, it's global mobility in terms of helping executives move. We're bringing in a new CEO. How do we get him here? Can you help us sort of get him set up here with all the paperwork? So that's a good chunk of our work. Another part is sort of personal immigration work. So for people that have sort of issues, they've gone abroad and they've fallen in love with somebody overseas and they want to sponsor a family. They want to sponsor their new spouse to come to Canada, or their parents or grandparents live overseas and they want to help them bring them in. Or they've got issues themselves with, PR card renewals and stuff like that. And then we do a small sort of a segment of our work also consists around sort of people that have run into trouble, either with the immigration regulations or with the law criminally, that also leads them to problems with the immigration regulations.
Although that's a growing segment of the business because of changes from a few years ago. Now companies are being audited for foreign worker issues, and we are increasingly being called in to help with those audits.
So that's your business sort of profile. How has it changed since Donald Trump has come in? Have things moved around a little bit more?
Well, we're getting a lot of calls from U.S. area codes. Yeah. That's the big change.
Yeah, with every election, we tend to see an uptick in sort of the amount of Americans looking, but a lot of them, I would say, are people that are just testing the waters and they're not sure what it takes, So the amount of people that actually translate to actually immigrating is a very small number. I think if you look at the 2004 election, we were getting about 6,000 Americans a year. About 2 to 4 years later, we were looking at about 12,000. So the numbers almost doubled, but the numbers aren't massive, right? I mean, it's 6,000. We immigrate now 305,000 people a year, 6,000 coming from the States. Whether that doubles to 12,000 isn't going to really change much in Canada.
But when Donald Trump came in, I think it was in the first week or 10 days, he signed the executive order banning people from 7 different countries, and that has had a disruptive effect on the flow of people, and that's what you deal with, people moving around the world. So what happened after he did that?
Well, there was enormous amount of uncertainty as to what this order meant. Did it apply to dual nationals? Did it apply to green card holders? Did it apply to just people that had visas? Did it mean you couldn't get a visa? So there was a lot of uncertainty around what the actual legislation meant. And you had the extraordinary event happen, which is unprecedented in Canadian history, where the Canadian Minister of Immigration went out on and did a press conference where he explained what he understood and what the State Department had told him were the effects of this travel ban, who it caught and who it didn't, only to find out later that the officials that actually were briefing him were later either all resigned or were fired, because that's not what the executive order was intended at all by the government.
And it was the new minister's just got on the job, right?
Yeah. He'd only been in place about 10 days.
Let's step back a bit. Our immigration minister, Ahmed Hussein, is born in Somalia, came to Canada as a refugee when he's 16. What's remarkable about that is Somalia is one of the 7 countries on this banned list. And, is he allowed to go to the United States?
Even as a minister.
That was the initial concern people had. And that at least seems to have abated that concern for 2 reasons. One, dual citizens do not appear to have been caught by this. Second, green card holders, and there is a way for them to get a waiver ultimately to allow them into the United States and back into the United States. These are existing U.S. green card holders. And finally, there has been, as we've spoken about on previous shows, a flood of lawsuits to stop enforcement of these orders that have, for the time being anyway, allowed for the people that at least had visas already in hand to come to the United States. Although it has seemed to have slowed the flow in terms of the U.S. issuing visas to new people.
I mean, I think generally across the board, we've seen people that, are from one of the 7 banned countries. It's been a chill in terms of their travel plans to the United States or to those countries. If they're just passing through those countries, visiting a relative, et cetera, and then coming back to having to go through the United States, the chance of them being vetted to sort of additional screening because of that visit raises a specter that most people aren't comfortable with.
But it has raised the anxiety level, even though people are allowed to travel back and forth. Your advice to your clients is what? If you are an Iranian, Canadian, or Iranian business person that needs to travel back and forth, what are you saying?
Well, we're very cautious about travel to the United States if you don't have to go, because even if the ban doesn't apply to you, the experience people are having is extra scrutiny at the airport. Very unpleasant interviews at pre-screening centers, long wait times, uncertainty whether you'll get on the plane or not. I mean,
and do you have any insight as to actually what they're asking? Have you heard any of these conversations?
Sure. The focus seems to be at the moment about travel to the countries in question. When were you last back in Iran? When did you work in Iran? What is your job? Are you an engineer? Are you in this field? Are you in that field? Did you serve military service in Iran, which is mandatory? Like I'm using the Iranian example, but anyone from any of these other countries. When did you come as a refugee? What have you been doing since you were a refugee? What mosque do you attend? All of these questions have been asked. And some people have had really upsetting experiences. And, and now a lot of them, the vast majority, I'd say, have been let in. But that doesn't mean that the experience is something that won't traumatize certain people. So
we're even seeing people with Nexus cards. So Nexus is a special, for the people that don't know, it's a facilitated
God
travel.
God bless Nexus. It gets me to the front of the security line.
Anybody that has that,
loves it,
and it makes a big difference on their life because, the United States has said, apply through this program and we're going to facilitate your entry.
And we've done all the background checks on you. You're good to go.
We've seen you in person. You've had an interview. We've run everything through, and now they're revoking people, Iranians.
Hundreds of Nexus cards have been revoked.
So if you're a Iranian American, all of a sudden you've lost your card to travel.
On what basis?
On the basis that we are, because you're coming from Iran, there is increased scrutiny and basically it's in the national interest, right? Is why they're taking it away.
What's your reply to the U.S. administration saying it's not a Muslim ban, it's a travel ban?
Well,
I don't know if I want to touch that one. Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to stand here and defend the U.S. administration. This is an odious executive order, but this is one of the more challenging, in my view, aspects of the rhetoric around this. It's a good sloganeer for sound bites, but I'm not sure I understand the logic of it. I mean, yes, these are all majority Muslim countries, but it's not like it represents most of the world's Muslims. It doesn't even represent a small percentage of the world's Muslims. And it's not like there aren't Christians in Syria or in Iraq or in some of these other states. So, it seems to be a easy mischaracterization. I mean, to me, the net effect of it and what it was intended to do are very difficult to reconcile with the president's own rhetoric. The president's own rhetoric seems to suggest that it's a Muslim ban. Yeah. And that's what I think is very difficult for people to swallow, is that during the election campaign, it certainly sounded like a Muslim ban was going to happen.
Well, and that conversation with Juliana that's come forward, that the discussion was, well, how do we do this legally? And the decision was to pick what the Democrats said. Obama already had a list where they have extra vetting procedures for those 7 countries. And so we'll pick those first.
I wonder how this, I mean, obviously it isn't a purely Muslim ban if you take it literally, but within the context of what the administration has done and said, how is it not sort of a Muslim ban? I mean,
but that's the doublespeak you get. I mean,
that's the doublespeak.
What's that Kellyanne Conway? Boy, she can spin anything.
Well, no. I think we're very worried about Bowling Green.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I've been waiting up nights on Bowling Green. Just like Grenada. Remember when Reagan invaded Grenada? I struggled every night. I couldn't go to bed because Grenada.
Well, that was a diversion away from the Iran-Contra deal.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
yes, indeed. Well, but at least it existed. There were 4 Cubans, I think, on Grenada that made the Americans nervous. But I've never even, the Bowling Green is an actual outright fabrication.
Yeah.
That's the difference between 35 years of rot.
Wasn't it called The Truthiness? We've kind of missed that show, The Colbert Report. Well, when we come back, we're going to pick up our conversation with Rudy Kisher and Alex Stojkovic from MKS Law, talking about immigration, citizenship, refugees, the whole gamut. Next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.